Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. I have a special guest on right now. He's a great comedian, but he's also a political activist and he's a journalist. And he's been summoned by the House Intelligence Committee to talk about Russia involvement in our election and all things Russia. His name is Randy Credico. I have him on the phone right now. Hi, Randy. How are you?
Hey, very good, Jimmy. Thank you for having me on the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. Now, I just want people to know I have your picture up. I want everybody to know that you are the real deal. You were instrumental in getting the Rockefeller drug laws rewritten. You've been essential in getting lots of people out of prison over who are unlawfully imprisoned. And lots of people have hailed your work, and they've done a documentary on your work called 60 Spins Around the Globe. You're what everybody should aspire to be. And you've also done interviews with Julian Assange recently because you're a big free speech activist. And so now you got a letter from Adam Schiff, who we've lampooned here on the show, from the U.S. House of Representatives, the House Intelligence Committee. And tell me what's going on.
Well, I got I think about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, I pretty much kept this buried, a letter from them asking me to appear before them, to voluntarily go before them and talk about RussiaGate. It's a huge letter that they sent me. I think I sent it to you.
Yes.
It's signed by Adam Schiff. And so I mulled it over for about 2 weeks, and then I sent them a letter saying, no, I will not voluntarily testify or be interviewed by the House Intel Committee on RussiaGate, basically. And so I got a phone call from my lawyer the next day saying, well, they are going to send you a subpoena. So that should be coming. It's either there today or tomorrow through my lawyer trying to compel me to testify, about my association with Julian Assange, people that I've been, like you, I've really focused on this, on free speech and WikiLeaks and this bogus RussiaGate operation that's going on, and some of the creepy characters that are involved, including Adam Schiff. We got to be honest. I mean, this guy, 60% of his donors are in the arms business. So it's a little troubling. I'm a little nervous. Am I going to go down there? I'm probably going to go down there, but I'm certainly not. I have nothing to say to them.
So what do you think this is really about then? What do you think they're trying to intimidate you or what is this about?
I think it's going after WikiLeaks. First of all, they called them, as you have mentioned many times, a hostile intelligence entity, right? Pompeo has called them that, and it's now language that is encoded in our last budget bill, I believe. So I'm over there. I was there twice in the last 2 weeks. I had lunch with him. We talked about the Jimmy Dore show. He loves the Jimmy Dore show. You got to get him on your show, Jimmy. So they don't want him to put stuff out there. As you have pointed out time and time again, this man has never been contradicted or impugned. Any of his releases are 100% accurate. He's an accurate journalist, and they're trying to treat him like a hostile intelligence operation. Now, you got the Daily Beast, and you got these other online operations. You got the Washington Post, Smoking Gun. They put out material by Guccifer, too. Why aren't they being classified as hostile intelligence operations? They don't want this guy to be getting stuff out there. He's a powerful journalist. They don't want that material to be out there in the public. They don't want us to be knowledgeable. And they're trying to intimidate people like me. And I know you've been intimidated yourself. There are people saying bad things about you in Congress recently, I believe. And so they don't want him to get stuff out. They don't want people like me talking with him. I've been there, like I said. I visited him 3 times since September. And not only me now, a couple of his lawyers are going through the ringer, too, with Dianne Feinstein on the Senate Intel Committee side.
Oh, no kidding. So,
yes, I can't mention their names, but I can tell you a couple of lawyers have received similar letters to appear before the Senate Intel Committee that work with Julian Assange.
So this is basically, again, the establishment, along with the intelligence community of the United States, wanting to shut down a truth teller. This is the oldest story in the world, by the way, and so they've used propaganda to turn Julian Assange, who is a publisher of information, none of it ever been false, like you stated. And that's what he does, right? And he exposes the crimes of the powerful. So he's made lots of powerful enemies, and now they've hoodwinked half the country into thinking somehow he's an enemy of liberty and democracy in the United States, when it's the exact opposite, right? He's actually upholding those principles, and the people who uphold those principles actually evenly we pillory in this society. And by the way, Hillary Clinton called for his assassination. And I try to remind people, can you imagine if Donald Trump called for the assassination of Jeff Zucker at CNN? Or Phil Griffin over at MSNBC. Could you imagine if he did that? But Hillary Clinton did it, and it hardly got a bleep in the media. So you're talking about Julian Assange, and they're trying to intimidate. Now, you went over and visited him. You've interviewed him. And so you think this is an attempt to discourage people from doing that?
Well, I don't think they want him to get out there. They want to contain him. They don't want his stories. El País just went after him, which is the establishment, New York Times or Washington Post of Spain, because he did incredible reportage on the situation in Catalan, the independence vote. He was the only one, and that's where I got the information. I certainly wasn't getting it anywhere else. I got the information from his postings on Twitter, and incredible postings, and now they're going after him. You know, when I was there, there was a picture in El País of two people visiting the embassy, the two people from Catalan that had been there 5 or 6 days earlier. And they put it in like it was the paparazzi that took the pictures, when in fact it was a government spy camera in a window, which was geometrically proven to me that it was the same. Both pictures came from the same angle, just like a different shot. And, you know, it's scary stuff. Like you go in there, you go into the embassy, you have to go through a lot of security to get inside. And he's been there for 5 years and a half. All right. Almost 6 years coming in June. And I got to tell you something, this man still pumps out great material. He still has a commitment. He still has the energy. And, you know, thank God there are people like you out there that are diffusing some of the BS so people can see what you say to analyze it correctly. You're the only one that's analyzing it correctly.
Well,
I really got to give you high fives for that, because you have, and I consider you a great comic and a journalist at the same time, you have restored some sanity to comedy.
Aha! Well, thank you, Randy. That's a high compliment. I really appreciate it. I wanted to ask you about the letter they sent you, because I read it, and in it says the letter also requests preservation and production of all documents, records, electronically stored information, recordings, data, and tangible things, including but not limited to graphs, charts, photographs, images, and other documents, regardless of form, other than those widely available, e.g. newspaper articles, related to the committee's investigation, your interview, and any ancillary matters. So they want to have access to everything that you have completely in your life, it seems like, as a journalist. So what do they want to have? They subpoenaed your notes or anything?
You know, I'm going to give them a copy of Laura Keitlinger's documentary, 60 Spins Around the Sun, and say, those are the only documents that I have. Let them watch that, all right? Because, I have not seen the subpoena. They threatened to send it, and it just hasn't come. I don't even know. I mean, look, technologically, what am I? I mean, I'm like Ali Oop is more into technology than me. I have no idea what I'm doing. I can talk on a cell phone. I don't even know how to use Skype, okay?
So
otherwise, we would be doing Skype right now. I don't know how to use it.
Okay, I hear you. I understand. I got you. It's very easy. You could actually even do it off your phone, but it doesn't matter. So Randy, so what are you going to say to them when they bring you up to the committee? What are you going to tell them what you guys talked about when you met? I mean, you freely tell people what you guys talked about anyway, right?
Right. Well, I've had him on the show. I think 4 times on my radio show, 4 times, and I'll let them have those files. They're in the Pacifica archives. But anything that I said behind closed doors with him or anybody else on my radio show, I have nothing to say to them. And you know what? They could get it anyway because they just go to one of these metadata centers in Fort Meade or in Utah, and everything's stored. I mean, why do they say, should I preserve? They've already preserved it. They've got it preserved. Everything. Talk to William Binney or Thomas Drake. All of these conversations are already preserved. So it would be redundant for me to try to preserve stuff that they've already kept on file.
Well, so what do you think? Just so moving on, and so you promised to come talk to us after you go to the hearing, correct?
I want you to know that I'm going to quote Dalton Trumbo, what he said in 1947 or 48. I'm going to use his words, which I have nothing to. I'm not going to dignify or legitimize this witch hunt. It is a witch hunt. They want a Cold War. You know, they got their. This is the same thing that happened. Remember, in the 50s, they wanted a Cold War with Russia, and they did it with that entire Red Scare witch hunt. So they brought that back to life. They want to have They don't want a nuclear war. They just want to have a Cold War. When you have all of these weapons. You know, when you have a $700 billion defense budget, you got to spend it somewhere. We've got China surrounded like a noose, 400 bases. Russia, we got 100 bases around them. Syria, I think you put up a map the other day. Iran, we got bases everywhere. How many bases does Russia have over here?
Right, exactly. Zero.
I haven't seen one.
Well, people don't realize, Randy, that Russia is a paper tiger in a sense that it's completely propped up to be more powerful and scarier than it is because the military-industrial complex and the deep state, they need an enemy, right? So now that people are figuring out we're the ones creating terrorists, they're starting to have to figure out ways to keep this military budget going, and I really believe that's behind a lot of this ramping up. I mean, Dennis Kucinich was on my show, and he talked about how the deep state had undermined Barack Obama's deal with Russia to share information about what was happening in Syria, and they didn't want that to happen. They wanted us to keep fighting in Syria, right? They didn't want cooperation. Yeah. They want exactly what you're saying. They want the Cold War to keep going on, and so that's why and how sickening is it to you, Randy, to see the lefty media or quote unquote lefty media is the one now pushing the new Red Scare? Russia, right. Just to finish my point before, Russia only spends $65 billion a year on their military. We spend now $700 billion a year on our mililitary, and we don't
That's
really
on the books. That's on the books. $700 billion on the books. We don't know what the off the books, cash flow is into there.
Right.
That's 10%. 10%. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
So I would just say people always say to me, Jimmy, you're getting this thing wrong about Russia. And I say, whenever there is evidence to show, I will report it. Until then, I'm not going to report rumor. Okay, because that's all this is, and propaganda until there's evidence, which you and I both know there never will be, because the DNC and John Podesta did not let the FBI or the Department of Homeland Security to investigate their servers. And why? And now we're supposed to believe the DNC and John Podesta, who have been proven liars. They lied for a year straight about whether they funded the dossier. They lied constantly about whether they hijacked the DNC and whether the primary was rigged. So they're the biggest liars and cheaters in the world, and somehow we're supposed to believe them on this.
When I hear them talking about how they interfered with our democracy, you take a look at these 15 people on a committee, our democracy. Right now we're spending $700,000 in Hungary trying to interfere with their elections, but that's okay, right? And they got like 1/10 their population. 700, and Russia supposedly spent $100,000 on Facebook. I didn't see one of their ads, as if that would have any influence. As far as this entire operation that's going on with RussiaGate, you take a look at, you are right. There was interference in our democracy, and it was done by the National Committee when they screwed Bernie Sanders. That's where the focus should be. They should have an intel committee investigating everyone involved, including John Podesta, in undermining our democracy, which was the Democratic primary system.
Yes, there's a lot of people who influence. How about the people in New York City who worked for the government who threw 200,000 voters off the rolls, and they admitted they did it illegally now? And guess what? None of those people are going to jail. Isn't that funny? Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
So we actually have.
They said,
Go
We
ahead.
have proof, yes.
We have
Yes,
documented.
actually have proof.
We have documented election hacking. There it is. No one goes to jail, and it barely gets reported. Isn't that amazing? So again, that's what makes me believe this is all propaganda. And I have to remind people, Randy, that the reason why half the country is poor or low income and 63% of Americans can't afford $1,000 emergency has nothing to do with Russia. The reason why people go bankrupt when they get sick has nothing to do with Russia. The reason why we are in spending $700 billion a year has nothing to do with on the military, has nothing to do with Russia. And the reason why you are in a mountain of debt when you want to go to college and we don't have any gun legislation, none of that stuff has anything to do with Russia. And that's what they don't want us talking about. They want us talking about Russia. But guess what? I travel as a comedian, and I know people like comedians. People in America don't give a shit about Russia, and they see
Absolutely.
through. So I try to tell people, if you really oppose Trump, you wouldn't be talking about Russia. You'd be talking about his horrible tax plan or his health care plan or what he's doing
Or
with
the deportations of Haitians, the deportations of Salvadorans, deportations of other people. There's a lot, the tax plan that's coming up that you just mentioned. There's a lot of reasons to not like Trump or to oppose Trump, but this isn't the one. This is a false lead, and people don't care. I don't know we have 2.5 million people in prison in this country. Why aren't they talking about that? Why isn't Adam Schiff talking about 2.5 million of his fellow Americans, nearly 1% of the population, that are rotting behind a prison system that has no oversight? Dostoevsky said you can judge a society by the conditions of the prisons. Ours are in horrible shape. And the criminal justice system, they talked about reforming it. Forget about it. So what's going on? The new amping up the drug war with this clown, this racist Jeff Sessions. That's what we should be focusing on, not RussiaGate.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's how shocked are you to see other comedians, your peers, fall hook, line, and sinker? And I'm not talking just about like Stephen Colbert and the guy and Trevor Noah and pushing this stupid fucking Russia thing. But how surprised are you by just regular club comedians who are pushing it also?
I cannot believe it, because I can't go on Facebook anymore. There's a good reason not to go on Facebook, because it's a dossier that you're supplying them with, a full dossier. But I get too upset when I see all these comics that I'm friends with falling for this right. And people that you and I know, a lot of people out there in Los Angeles, I don't want to mention any names, but every single one of them seem to be falling for this RussiaGate garbage. They're all buying it, hook, line, and sinker. Thank God that you're there. As I said, you have just like John Peel just said that Julian Assange has restored decency to journalism. You have restored decency to political comedy, and you're like the only one. The most trusted name in comedy is Jimmy Dore right now.
Well, Randy, that's a high compliment coming from you. You actually, I have a big...
I love you and Barry Crimmins. I don't think Barry Crimmins is talking, and some others that are out there that don't buy it. I think Katie Halper's not buying it, and some others. But the vast majority of people I know who are comedians. And the thing is, you've been doing this for a long time. You've been doing comedy for a long time. All right, you're a wise guy, and you're younger than I am, but you're a wise individual. And so you paid your dues doing political humor. These people were doing McDonald's humor 2 or 3 years ago, relationship material 2 or 3 years ago. They're Johnny-come-latelys to them. They don't understand it.
I know.
I feel sorry for them. They don't have any background in political humor because they didn't get into it.
Thank you very much for saying that. Yes, just people who started paying attention because of Trump. It's like, okay, you're missing the whole backstory. You're missing the whole. You can't just. You have to nip it in the bud. Now you're just going after the flower. Trump is what happens. You have to go after the roots problem, and that's what people don't understand. And that's why people think people like you and me are just kind of like cranky agitators. But what we really are people who can tell you how we got here and what we need to do to get out of it. And even the labor unions, Randy, are agreeing with us Plus now. They've came together. I don't know if you know this, but they had a convention where they decided that the lesser of two evil voting is got to end now. So they've defined
Right.
even the teachers union. So people are coming around to our way of thinking. You and me is what I'm talking about.
I hope so. I hope. Can I say one thing? And I remember you talking about this under Obama. Where were they when he was passing the NDAA or HR 347 or keeping the Patriot Act in stone? There are a lot of things, and he passed all of those powers on to Trump.
To Trump. In fact,
Who gave it to him? Obama.
And so, what I would say to people, Randy, before the inauguration, I would say if you guys are if Trump is really as crazy as everybody says he is, why isn't Barack Obama scrambling like a maniac, trying to rescind all those executive powers he gave people? He's going to give to Trump right now to spy on people. Why isn't he trying? In fact, he was doing the opposite. You know that, Randy. He was actually trying to expand the powers of the government to spy on people.
Right. The NSA grew big time under him. The spying. I mean, this guy went after 8, 9, 10 people, Thomas Drake, others, William Binney, others under the Espionage Act. It was used more times by him than the previous 30 presidents since Wilson, the Espionage Act. There are people in jail because of this guy. And I don't know if Trump has done it yet, but he set a record using, and here's a guy who's a Harvard lawyer and he's a constitutional lawyer, and yet he allowed these things to happen, and then he goes off and hangs out with Richard, what's his name?
Branson.
Branson. Yes. And an island that was stolen from somebody, all right?
I know. Well, listen, Randy, I really appreciate you taking time. I know a lot of people want to talk to you now, today and tomorrow. And
that's it. You're my last interview. I got the Daily Beast. I have all these others trying to get a hold of me. I said that after I do the Jimmy Dore show, that's just the New York one, Max Blumenthal.
Okay.
And I did KPFA. I said, Dore is it. That was the dessert. Thank you very much. And to your guests on the show on the side, I love the show. And it will be on WikiLeaks as soon as it's out there on YouTube. I guarantee you.
Okay. All right, Randy. Thanks for taking time, and thanks for all the hard work. And please come back and tell us what happens when you go in front of the Intel.
I'll let you know. Please visit me in jail, okay?
I definitely will come visit you in jail if you go to jail for this.
All right. At long last, you have no sense of decency. See you later.
So that's Randy Credico. He's a real inspiration, a guy who is gotten a lot of stuff actually done. He doesn't just gab. He doesn't just flap. He puts his body on the gears. He stops the machine with his body. So I really have a lot of respect for Randy. And go check out that documentary Laura Keitlinger made of him called 60 Spins Around the Sun. All right. By the way, make sure you subscribe if you like this show, people, and then click that bell next to it because they're not telling people about these kind of videos. And if you can become a patron and support us, we give lots of video to our patrons every week, our live show videos, things like that. So thanks for being a member. If you want to buy a mug, you can get a mug or a T-shirt for Christmas for someone to help support this kind of story, support kind of stories about this and people like us doing what we're doing, which is right now they're on the fringes. We're, as Orwell said, in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. And so it turns out, even though I like to wear comfortable shoes, I'm a revolutionary. All right. Thanks for your support. We'll see you. Our next live show is December 4th in Burbank, California. Link for tickets right there.